Okay. So, part of what I love doing is helping ambitious on the go women learn how to stress less so that you can smile more. Something that I found, and something a little bit about myself, was I have been managing anxiety for much of my life. And I probably shouldn't even say managing it. For the longest time, I learned how to be really good at burying the anxiety and overwhelm that I was living with. And what I didn't realize was that by burying and pushing down that anxiety, it was stealing moments of joy. It became harder and harder for me to get out of that autopilot living where I was actually enjoying the small moments of my life. And I really find this true for entrepreneurs. If you are someone who, whether it is a side hustle or you are working this in to be your full time job, whatever your entrepreneurial journey is, I will say since I started mine in April of 21, I realized how pivotal it was that I had started to learn how to manage my anxiety, how to manage my stress, because starting this entrepreneurial journey was no joke. It was one of the biggest tests of how I showed up to my own resilience tools. And when I found that these tools not only worked, but they helped me think more clearly as an entrepreneur, I knew that I wanted to continue to share this with more, type A on the go busy women like myself. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Maria Service. I'm the owner and founder of Maria Service LLC. I'm a keynote speaker, I'm a coach, and I'm a stress management consultant for businesses. My training is as an occupational therapist. I had an 8-year career working in the healthcare and mental health industries. And since around 2015, after I had landed what I thought was going to be my dream job working at Mayo Clinic, where I thought I was going to have a very long, drawn out career, I was like at my lowest point, most depressed, I was not living into my purpose. I was living into someone else's dream for me. And so, right around then, in addition to just starting to like figure out and pivot, what do I want to do with my life? I began specializing in resilience, managing stress, managing anxiety. Now, admittedly, when I started gaining these additional certifications and trainings, I did it because I really wanted to support my clients. So, something that I saw after working at Mayo for 2 years in the hospital and in the outpatient setting is that so much of why people are in the hospital honestly can be tied back to many people do not know how to manage stress or how to deal with big emotions. And when we let our emotions either get the best of us or we let it simmer under the surface until it's standing glaring in our face, these very real things turn into physical health difficulties. I was seeing young people who were, living the corporate life, very busy on the go, coming into the hospital in their 40s and 50s post heart attack. I was seeing individuals coming in their 50s and 60s, already starting to have a failure to thrive at home and just very depressed and down, and they didn't know how to get out of that. So I became very curious in emotions and stress and how that plays out. So I got an anxiety management certification. I became certified in using HeartMath biofeedback, learned more about emotional freedom technique, which is like an acupressure tapping technique, and just dove into more of these holistic ways to help people manage stress and anxiety. And by April of 2021, especially after the pandemic and just watching more people really struggle with managing stress, emotions, and overwhelm and kind of that fear of the unknown, I knew I wanted to bring these tools out into the community. I didn't want to only wait for people. So, as an occupational therapist, oftentimes I have to wait until someone was at rock bottom in order for them to qualify for services. So, wait until they're sick enough to be in the hospital, wait until they're sick enough that they need it in a rehab setting or that they're having severe mental illness difficulties, and then I could start working with them for occupational therapy. And I just didn't want to keep waiting that long. I wanted to bring these tools out to people. And so I started doing that in a coaching format. And then I started consulting with businesses to help stressed out teams. And I am honored to be chatting with you all today. I love Lachelle. I love what she is doing. And I'm honored to be one of the supporters here in the Spiral Up Club. So I want to speak to specifically you on this call, knowing the demands on entrepreneurs. I truly did not realize until I stepped into these shoes as well how difficult it can be. And I want to highlight that because I know that entrepreneurship also brings a myriad of other beautiful things. And I would not walk back to my consistent traditional career. You couldn't pay me to walk back there. Okay. And I was comfortable. I had a steady income. I had great benefits. And I was so unhappy. So, with that said, I am so grateful for all the things that entrepreneurship provides. However, I don't want to minimize the demands on entrepreneurs and as small business owners. There is such an amount of overwhelm and uncertainty because for many of us, we're forging a new path. We're going against the grain. It is likely that the women on this call or watching this training, you felt like there was a calling on your heart. You were here for more. You had passion and purpose, and you wanted to bring that into the world. However, with entrepreneurship, it's not like the traditional way of school and traditional business like thinking. I feel like that many of us were like raised to believe. And what I mean by that is, I had gotten very used to the school way system of, what, if I just get all this knowledge in my brain and then I'll pass this test and then I'll get to the next block or the next level. Okay. And then like get some more information, pass a test, just memorize it. Okay. Yep. Like there's a very traditional path that we see this like, okay, just got to climb the ladder, do the things, check the boxes. Good. We're going to rise. Entrepreneurship is so much more unpredictable because the dreams that we all have that we want to bring forth into the world oftentimes might be new or, you want to do it in your own authentic way. There is no guidebook. There is no rule book. There is no like, hey, in order for your business to be successful, all you got to do is this preset list of 1 through 20 things and then success will come. Entrepreneurship is a lot more about just figuring out what is it that you are being called to do and how do we take inspired action on that and how do we lean into the right mentors and the right coaches, but it's a journey and there's just no pretty like checkbox that like boom success happens. It's a lot more trial and error, which can lead to, quite frankly, more mental health difficulties. Now, the thing about mental health is that I do believe that there still is a stigma around mental health because oftentimes people equate mental health with mental illness. And I want you to know that the two are related, but not the same. So just because you are struggling with your mental health, i.e., maybe you're struggling with stress, anxiety, overwhelm, I want you to know that that does not mean you have a mental illness. I don't even like using the word mental illness just because I just don't even think it's not very person-centered even for someone who is living with a mental illness. But anyways, I just want you to know that depending on the severity of symptoms and things like that, you can be struggling with mental health and not have a mental illness. And even if you do have a mental illness, you can often still use a combination of other holistic tools to even help manage that. In addition to, obviously consulting with your medical care and wellness team. So I just want to say though that I do know that there is still stigma around owning to the fact that like, hey, I'm struggling. But here's the real facts. And this was from a Forbes article, and it was according to a study by the National Institute of Mental Health, is that we know that 72% of entrepreneurs are directly or indirectly affected by mental health issues compared to, just 48% of non-entrepreneurs. So this is very real. You are not alone. And I think it's because of the uncertainty of the entrepreneurial journey and how, especially for many of us when we're starting out, we oftentimes aren't starting out with like a team of 8 to 10 people or even a team of 5 to 6 people. Oftentimes we're starting like just me, here I am. started my business, I'm doing all the things. And then maybe you start adding a few people, but it can feel very lonely. So I think that's another contributor to why dealing with our mental health and our stress can be difficult. So in today's training, I want to highlight a few things that is going to get you started if you start to notice that the stress, the overwhelm, and the anxiety is maybe piling on. And what I found as an entrepreneur is that I think we go through different seasons. There's going to be times where I may be in a totally new growth period, putting something new out into the world, and that might mean that my stress is ramping up because I'm like, oh no, what are people going to think? How is this going to land? Inner critic comes up, all of that. Whereas, like, maybe I'm in a season where I've figured out an offer, I've got new clients coming in, everything feels really great. So you're not noticing the stress as much. What I want you to know is, as an entrepreneur, I think we have to be ready for the ups and downs. There are naturally going to be times and seasons where it feels like we're probably harvesting and reaping the benefits of all of our hard work, and it's going to feel really good. And then there also are probably going to be times where you're maybe putting new things out into the world, or you're in a growth zone and you're learning, which might lead to more trial and error. And so then we really need to be prepared to have stress management and anxiety management tools. So, one thing that I know is that sometimes, as busy on the go type A people, many of us have maybe actually developed a skill where we know how to, what we think we're doing is like we're quieting the stress, we're quieting the anxiety, but really we're kind of stuffing it and ignoring it. In today's masterclass and training, I actually am going to invite you and teach you how to actually reawaken your awareness to when your body is sending you like a stress signal. I actually want you to start increasing your awareness to knowing when that feeling of stress and overwhelm and frustration or whatever is creeping in, what what is causing it to rise, when is it happening, what is the intenseness of this feeling. The reason why this is key is because as you start to implement resilience and stress management tools, a tool is only going to be helpful if we know when we need to use it. If we're ignoring all the signs and signals of like, hey, use a stress management tool, then the tool is not going to be as effective. So, just on a piece of paper, I'm going to have you write down what thoughts, events, situations, or people in your life, or maybe again, this could be personal life or in your business career. What thoughts, events, or situations, or people are increasing feelings of stress, overwhelm, frustration, or anxiety for you? So I'm going to kind of keep going through, but feel free to pause and write a few things down. As you are thinking about maybe what has caused you stress in the last 5 to 10 days, then I want you to draw awareness to what is your body telling you? How do you know that you're feeling stressed? What are your body's stress signals? Is it that you have all of a sudden tension in your shoulders, a knot in your stomach, racing heart, brain fog, tightness in your back? You're not sleeping as well. So just jot down again and feel free to pause it, but write down, how is your body sending you the stress signal? Now, we have started to raise awareness to maybe what is causing you stress. And the interesting thing about our humanness is that we often experience stress in the form of like our emotions. What emotions are coming up? And so I have kind of put our emotions into two different categories. And I am very particular about not calling any certain emotions good or bad. I do not like using that line of framework. Honestly, emotions are just emotions, they're objective information. I'm going to go into, what is this depleting versus renewing? But I want you to know all emotions are valid. And emotions is kind of how we often create this experience of like stress happening in our body. And so, what we do know is that emotions that we commonly associate as quote unquote negative, not that I really want to use that word, but you know, negative emotions like worry, anxiousness, sadness, guilt, shame, stress, all of that, what we do know is that they tend to be depleting on our energy system. So I just know that because the amount of stress hormone that's being released when I'm in these emotions, there's more stress being released. And so it is going to be more depleting on my energy system. That is just good objective information for me to know. And vice versa, on the other hand, emotions like excitement, happy, joy, peace, calm, and love, they're renewing emotions. And that's just because, simply put, and objectively speaking, they're associated with less amount of stress hormone in the body, and they're actually associated with a different hormone called DHEA hormone. So it's a completely different hormone that's released because these two hormones are related. So when stress is coming down, we can create more DHEA, and that's going to feel renewing to our body because our heart is working in its most efficient, synchronized, balanced manner. And all of this comes from the HeartMath Institute over their years of research. So just thinking that emotions just are, they are objective pieces of information that tell us how is my body kind of managing stress and how much stress do I have going on based on maybe where my emotions are at. Note that it is completely normal, especially as an entrepreneur or business owner, to have a wide array of emotions. But just note that that just kind of means that like your system at any given time is always kind of trying to regulate how much stress you have. And we really want to be mindful of, is my stress like reaching this threshold where it's getting harder for me to manage now? One other thing I want to say about this is that I really want to prioritize honoring all of your emotions. I really don't, it's not good for us to get in this habit of stuffing down quote unquote bad and negative emotions. And that's why I don't really like using those words. So I use this analogy, whereas just because they're depleting emotions doesn't mean they're bad. So for example, many of you maybe exercise or work out, maybe even as a form of stress relief or for whatever your reasons, but that's very common. But notice how after we do, like if I just did a 5 mile run right now, I would have a depleted energy state, technically, right? Like, I mean, it's going to use some of my resources if I'm about to go for a 5 mile run and come back and be done. I'm going to need to replenish water. I'm going to need to replenish my nutrients and have a snack. That's just part of the give and take. Obviously, also going for a run for me might also release some happy hormones in my brain, though. So it has its purpose. It's there for a reason. And even though it's also depleting and I'm going to need to replenish when I get home, that doesn't make the 5 mile run bad. And I want you to start thinking of that when you like start noticing quote unquote negative emotions. Just think of them as depleting. And by depleting, that just means, hey, they're showing up. They're trying to tell us something, and we can use that information to just figure out, oh, here's where I'm at. How am I going to replenish or renew? So just a more objective way to look at them. This is another graphic that is from the HeartMath Institute and all their research. And I just wanted to put this here to let you know that we can actually track what your stress response is at. And we can do that using a HeartMath biofeedback technology tool. But in short, it's looking at heart rate variability. And it just tells us on this scale of, are we on more of the depleting emotional side? And if we are, we're just going to notice more stress and cortisol in the body. On the flip side, when we're in those renewing emotions, we are going to shift into this state called heart coherence. It's going to be more renewing to the body. So part of building resilience as an entrepreneur and using your stress management tools is just figuring out how to navigate these changes in the body to help ultimately get yourself back to balance. So truly, in the scheme of life, the goal is not to like just completely negate one half of this circle here and figure out a way to be happy 100% of the time. Unfortunately, in our emotional human experience, that is just not the case. But the goal is to just notice, when am I in a more depleting energy state? Raise awareness to it. Ask yourself, get curious. Why am I here? What pieces of my business are frustrating me? What keeps coming up? Oftentimes those might be lessons kind of glaring at us. But just get curious, and then also be asking yourself, okay, and how can I replenish my body and get back to a more renewing energy state? As entrepreneurs, it is pivotal to have tools to manage your stress, overwhelm, and anxiety. I am telling you, in the long run, I know sometimes it can feel like, well, if I just keep my head down, keep busy, do my work, like I'll just get through it, and like I'll worry about the stress some other day. But truly, what we know is time and time again, that does not really help. It's not really an effective strategy. So if you're going through some difficult things, or again, you're just an entrepreneur and you're just going to have like ups and downs and curveballs and things, I would rather have you just be able to be more resilient to those curveballs. I don't want one of them to take you out. I want you to be able to continue to live out your dreams, your passions, your purpose. So when you have the tools to actually manage your stress, overwhelm, anxiety, or whatever's coming up, you're going to ultimately be more equipped. It's going to feel less draining on your system. And just because we also know that stress really is, because we know it's a physiological reaction that happens in the body, whether you decide to face your stress or not, the reaction's already happening in your body. And so you're just, that stress is going somewhere. And honestly, it can ultimately then manifest into more physical health conditions down the road. And I do not want that for you. So remember, as the CEO of your business, you also want to be making decisions, like you have a lot of decisions to be made if in your business, for your clients, or for whoever you serve. You want to be making those decisions from a place of calm clarity, not from anxious overwhelm. I know that you don't do your best work when you're feeling stressed and anxious. Another really interesting, cool thing from the HeartMath Institute research, and I put the website here, you can go to heartmath.org to learn more. But what we also know is because of the power of the heart's electromagnetic field, they have proven through studies and through research, through years of research, it's not like this was just a one-off study. They know that the heart has the most powerful electromagnetic field, and it can be felt approximately 3 feet outside of us. So here's the thing. We can tell the difference when someone is in a more stressed heart state, or if they're in more of that balanced heart coherent state. That actually can be felt 3 feet outside our body. If you want to know more on this, send me a message. It's fascinating research. But at the end of the day, I just want you to remember too, self-care, managing your stress, upping your resilience is also, it's not selfish. You are helping raise the vibe of your surroundings, your community, your home, your family, just when you take care of yourself. So then I wanted to make sure to then cover, as we just started to unlock, I want you to, one, raise awareness to your stress. I want you to start noticing when it's creeping in. Excuse me, I want you to remember that you can honor all of your emotions. It's honestly better and healthier for you. And you have the power to shift and move through that. You have the power to shift out of a depleting energy state into a more renewing energy state. And here are some ideas. So I will say that when I started my resilience stress management journey back in 2015, I would kind of get stuck in this one track frame of mind. Like I'd be like, oh, meditation's the thing. I'm going to figure out meditation. Or, oh no, yoga's the thing. Anyways, I would get into one track mind and I would try to learn and master this one tool. And then it's like, that tool wouldn't always work for me when I needed it. Or maybe that tool was not right for me, either ever or in that season. So now I know better. And I'm just saying, I want to show you that there are so many different ways to manage your stress. I highly recommend exploring different stress management tools because, again, and then having like a toolbox, your resilience toolboxes might have 4 to 5 different tools that help, because depending on the day, depending on the season, depending on how much time you have, you might reach for one tool over the other. So I just don't want you to get pigeonholed into like, yoga is the only thing that works for me, and if I can't get my yoga class in, I'm done, right? Like I just want you to have options. So there are mind-based approaches to managing stress. That's often going to look like meditation, journaling, mindset work, therapy, things that are helping kind of rewire the mind. There are body-based approaches. Those are some of my favorite. I have really found somatic approaches to be helpful for me because they ultimately are what will help you calm and ground your nervous system. They're going to help you bring your body back to a feeling of calm and safety. And there's a mix of those. And then lastly, we all just need to be more intentional about planning in self-care and things that bring us joy. So because we know that joy is a renewing emotion, when we give ourselves the chance to play, have fun, find some hobbies, that's another great way to combat stress. I am so glad that you have stayed here for this training. I love talking on this topic. If this was helpful for you, definitely take advantage of your coaching session within the Spiral Up. Feel free to reach out to me and we can get something set up in the one-on-one session that you have. If you'd like to use that as your monthly session with a mentor or expert, we would dive a little bit deeper into just exploring some stress management tools. I would love to help just kind of see where you're at with managing your stress and what may be stressing you out, so we can figure out how can we maybe also work with that, and just give you more of an overview of some stress management tools that might support you in your journey. Thank you for watching.